Hey everybody, we will get started in just a couple of minutes. For once, it didn't take me all kinds of fiddling to get the live stream going. Oh, usually it literally takes me like 10 minutes to remember how to make it go. It's crazy. Cutter Jockey, hey, how you doing? Wayne's World, good to see you. Let me just mute a few of my devices. Hither and yon. We're doing a huge software thing at work, and I'm part of it. So I have to have my work computer like on in the background so I can see what's going on. All right, that's gone. All righty. We're still early, so yay. Terry, great to see you. Thanks for coming. We're still a little early, so we'll give folks another minute. You can all hear me, right? No problem at all. Wayne's World. Puppies must needs come first. Cutter Jockey. No, that's an interesting story. Have I been painting? I had off between Christmas and New Year. So I had literally like almost 2 weeks off from work, and I haven't painted a single miniature during that time. All my time was spent writing. I got most of my May module done, which is great because that was really hanging over my head. And I got the Swords of Wuja book, which is my redo of Golden Scroll of Justice, off and done and off to the editor, and she's been getting me feedback. So between those two things, I wanted to. I have literally right here. You might even be able to see it. I have the entire army of Hardbee sitting here waiting to be painted. It's primed, it's ready to go, everything. I haven't painted a damn thing, and it weighs on me, but I did get all the writing done that I was hoping to do, so that's a good thing. All righty, let's see. Looks like we're past the 7 o'clock mark. We've got 11 people in the thing, so let's get this thing going. Hi, my little droogies. Thanks for coming to the January full moon madness live stream. Don't really have. It's been a pretty slow news day in terms of the gaming community, so I don't know what we'll talk about. So, yeah. So let's get that out of the way, if y'all don't mind. First of all, let me ask: does anybody have any specific questions? Let's talk about OGL first. We'll get to more fun things later, but if anybody has any OGL questions, and specifically how they apply to BRW games or Greyhawk Grognard or anything I do, let's get that conversation done first. And then we can talk about modules and stuff and all that, the fun stuff. I've seen a bunch of things over the last 2 days, and I'm sure most of you have as well. There's a gazillion videos and blog posts and articles and all that good stuff. Hey, Daniel, good to see you. Thanks for coming. We're talking OGL first, and then just to get clear the decks of that topic. 2 years ago, I made a decision that BRW Games would be pivoting away from Adventures Dark and Deep as a standalone game system and into a series of supplements that could be used with other role-playing games, old school role-playing games. And that started with the Book of Lost Beasts and the Book of Lost Lore, and continued with the Swords of Cthulhu, and is continuing with the Swords of Wuja, and at least one more that I'm working on right now. Those books don't use the OGL. The core books for Adventures Dark and Deep, like the core, Adventures Dark and Deep as its own game, uses the OGL. It has to, because it's a full game. That's what makes use of a lot of the stuff that's in the SRD. Because these other books are supplements, my reading and the advice I've received in terms of the legalities of it are, as long as I don't step on Wizards of the Coast's trademarks, it's no different than if somebody wanted to make a expansion for Monopoly with a second track around the first one. As long as you don't use the word Monopoly, as long as you don't use the trademarks and the copyrighted text, you can do that. So, that's where I'm going with my own stuff. And that also applies to my adventure modules. For a long time, they've been published under the OGL, and they've been published specifically for Adventures Dark and Deep as a game. With the last few modules that I put out, they're being released as modules for, they're being released as generically 1E modules, avoiding trademarks and all that, and copyrights and things like that, but and thus not being released under the OGL. It's my understanding that the U.S. Copyright Office, whatever the official patent and trademark office, whatever it's called, has made that as ruling that you can't copyright game mechanics. You can copyright specific language. So that is how that's being done. So on one level, BRW Games is insulated from any changes to the OGL, because there's a couple of different ways this can go. The first one is that Wizards of the Coast just says you can't use the 1.0 license at all. It's blown up. It doesn't exist anymore. You're done. That's very unlikely from a legal standpoint and a whole bunch of other standpoints. Another possibility is that they say, well, the 1.0 license exists for everything that has come before it. If you publish something under the OGL 1.0, you can keep it. It stays there, but you can't publish anything new. That's also kind of shaky from what I understand. What is more likely is that they're going to say, if you publish under this new 1.1 license, then you can't publish under the 1.0 license, because it's going to be written into the 1.1 license that says, if you use this license, you can't use any previous licenses. That, I think, is the most probable thing. And thus, since I have no intention of publishing under the 1.1 license for a variety of reasons, based entirely on the leaked text, right? I don't have any inside knowledge or anything like that. I have not seen the full leaked text. I've only read what other people have posted about it. But based on that, my stuff is insulated from any changes to the OGL, because I have no need nor desire to publish for one D&D. Now, this is the thought that keeps me up at night. And you'll see why in a second. What if, after they release this 1.1 license and they say, well, you can only use our license if the 1.1 license, then you can't use the old license. What if they open up Greyhawk on DM's Guild? That literally keeps me up at night because I don't have the slightest idea what I would do. I can't imagine that I could resist the temptation not to publish Greyhawk stuff under those conditions, and that would require me to use the 1.1 license. And I don't know what I don't know how I would react in that situation. I don't see it happening. They have not made any moves to say that they're friendly towards Greyhawk at all. But that possibility is just, that would be the perfect storm for me of, oh my God, I'm screwed. So anyway, now all that being said, that's where I stand on the OGL question. Another thing that I thought of is, as long as they're making changes to the OGL, does that mean that they're also going to be making changes to the fan content policy, which is a completely different thing? It's not a license. It's just a policy that they have up on their website. And if you Google Wizards of the Coast fan content policy, you'll find it. It's right up there. It hasn't been updated since 2017. And that's how most of my Greyhawk stuff, all of my Greyhawk stuff on the blog, gets published. It's published under the auspices of that policy. And I have not heard that they're changing it at all, but to my mind, it would make sense. As long as they're making all these other changes, they might be contemplating making a change to that too. I have no idea if that's actually happening, but it did occur to me today, and that would really, who knows what the change could be. I don't know. So anyway, so that is my rant on the OGL. I will now pause and see if anybody has anything in the comments before we move on. All right. All righty. So there we go. 10 minutes in, I've hopefully got that off my chest and out of the way. So that said, does anybody have anything else they want to talk about? Any Greyhawk topics that have been burning in your mind since last month? I'm always happy to poke around in any of the little recesses. Wayne's World, yes, they do, and unfortunately, I'm not their customer. That you say Wizards doesn't. Hey, Jared, no problem at all. You missed my 10 minutes on the OGL, so you missed the good part. But hey, Bear, good to see you. Steven, welcome aboard. What is being painted behind me is this is the Army of Hardby in 15 millimeter for my Greyhawk Battles game. I had meant to actually have this done painted by the end of my Christmas break, and ended up doing writing instead of painting. So my Hardby army is sitting here. I actually used a bunch of Amazons. So like the cavalry is this is why, if you look at the document, somebody asked me, why did I use unicorns? It's because I have unicorn figures for my Amazons. So that's for my Amazon cavalry. That is why. That is why Hardby has unicorn cavalry. But no, unfortunately, they're primed, ready to roll. I've also got a bunch of wizards, and if I can find one. Yeah, I have a bunch of wizards that can be attached to command bases. They have these cool little magnets that I embedded into the base so that they can stick to the magnets. Also got these giant trolls. All this is 15 millimeter for the war game I'm doing, and I've got a water elemental and an earth elemental too. So I got a bunch of stuff that I need to take care of, but just the writing has been weighing heavily upon me. Yeah, I can't wait to do a 25 millimeter, Jared, because I've been painting 15 millimeter figures for like the last 8 months, and of course, obviously they're very small compared to the 25s. I can't wait to see what it's like to paint a 25 millimeter figure again. I can't imagine it's got to be easier now because I've been doing all this detail work on the 15s, and if I blow up to a 25, it's got to be easier. So yay. Let's see now. Michael Stronghold, tricks I can share for running the elemental nodes. Um, let's see. The best thing, I'll be honest, is to get the Goodman Games copy of Temple of Elemental Evil, because they've expanded them all out. They have detailed them all. All the elemental nodes are done. And it's a much better treatment than in the original. It's for 5th edition, so you'd have to, if you're using an old school game, you'd have to reconvert it back. But to be honest, that's your best bet. You could use the encounter tables that they have in there. It was only until the last couple of years that I really understood what the elemental nodes were about. So like careful reading of everything is vital to figuring that out. But you could use the encounter tables to flesh things out. But honestly, Goodman Games has done all the work for you already. And right now you can get their stuff on Amazon for like half off. So I would highly recommend that. Hey Sparky, welcome aboard. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. Jared, very, very short version of my views on the OGL. It doesn't really impact BRW games because I've started to move away from the OGL anyway. I worry that they're either that they might take away the old OGL entirely, which I think is unlikely, because the core ADD rules are using it. But I'm not too worried about that. I think that's highly unlikely. I worry more that in the process of changing the OGLs, they're also going to cast their eye upon the fan content policy, and that would royally harm me, because that's how I release all of my Greyhawk stuff. So I am just hoping that they're going to leave the fan content policy alone. But in terms of BRW games, I'm slowly converting everything over to 1st edition, and not stepping on trademarks anyway, and not using the OGL. So it would only impact the core rule books. So that's the shortest version. Bear, that's, yeah. So many, exactly. So many people think that OSE is OSR because OSE has such an enormous footprint out of nowhere too. I think I have a PDF of it, but I need to get a book so I can really see what it's about. As I understand, OSE is just a very well packaged and well organized take on the basic rules. So, more power to them. They seem to be doing amazingly with it. We don't know, Jared. We do not know what the OGL changes are. They were supposed to have released that language on Wednesday, and they didn't. And my personal feeling is, and remember, I have no insight, I've got no behind the scenes sources. Those people go to people like Tencar, not me. But I've got no insight. But my feeling is that they've delayed the release of the exact language because they're reacting to pushback that they've received from publishers and from the public from the leak. So I would not be a bit surprised if the final version that actually gets released is a little different than we've seen in the leaks, because I think their lawyers are working all weekend, and I would not be a bit surprised if we didn't see something on Monday or Tuesday. Are there any 2E mechanics that I like or use? Yes, as a matter of fact. It's been a long time since I've played 2nd edition. I was big into 2nd edition back in the day. As I recall, it uses the same sort of initiative system that I use in Adventures Dark and Deep, which is you roll, everybody rolls independently, and then you start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and as you go in different segments, different actions happen. I'm pretty sure that's how it works in 2nd edition. Like I say, I haven't played it since I was in the Air Force, so I might be a little shaky on that. I did love the idea of the kits. Back on the old AOL days when there was like the Greyhawk AOL board, I had literally made kits for every class for every country in the FLNS. And I wish I still had all that stuff. As far as I know, all of the stuff in the old AOL Greyhawk folders went away, which is a pity because I had uploaded it all there. But I thought kits were a great idea. Little tiny tweaks here and there to different classes. I thought that was a great idea. And of course, the blue series of supplement books that they had, like the book of humanoids and those kinds of books. The DM books were really good, and the green ones were also really interesting too. Some of the brown ones, especially as they got along in the series, kind of got. It was obvious that they hadn't play tested a lot of it. Some of them were a little janky when it came to the power levels of stuff that they did in there. But on the whole, it was pretty good. I also loved Dark Sun. We played Dark Sun in the Air Force. I remember I had a half giant, and that was a hoot. So I do like the Athos setting for 2E. So all right, let me catch up here. OSE is basic as BX. OSE advanced. Okay. So it's like Labyrinth Lord in that respect. They've got a basic and an advanced. Cool. Thank you, Rick, and welcome. Thank you for coming. Jared, let's see. In the rule set, I base my Silver Wolf story. Okay, yes. Specialist wizards. I think we covered this in the last month's chat. The reason I kind of like illusionists is because they resist the temptation to make all of their spells just about illusions. The illusionist class, and this is the way magic user subclasses should be. It's based around a concept. It's not just based around a particular type of spell. So you've got, illusionists. They do illusions, but they also have things like hypnosis and charm and things like that. So they're about mental control over others, and I think that it elevates the idea of the illusionist as a class beyond just phantasmal force in a zillion different forms. They're about clouding people's minds and controlling them and so forth. Plus, as you get higher in level, the illusions actually take on a semi-reality because you have like the shadow monsters and the demi-shadow monsters and the semi-shadow monsters, those spells. So I love the idea that not only are they mind manipulators, but they're also their powers of mind manipulation become so powerful that they actually have mind over matter at some point. I did the same thing with necromancers because the idea of a necromancer class is a great idea, but so many people just say, okay, it's going to have all necromancy spells. That's not the way to approach it. You want to approach a subclass of magic user as a concept. And yeah, they're going to have a preponderance of necromancy spells, but they're also going to have summoning spells and conjuration spells. And, they're going to have a whole wide plethora all focused around the same concept. And that's what I did with my necromancer. So that's why I don't mind the illusionist so much. But it's also why when you see other people try to do like a conjurer class or an abjurer class, they just fall flat because there's not enough of a hook there. You can't build an entire class just around a handful of spells. It has to have a concept, and I think that's why I like the illusion. So, anyway, hope that that makes sense. Nordic Maelstrom, hey, welcome. Wish you had all the. Oh God, yes, so do I. I would be publishing those. I'd put them out there absolutely if I still had them. I wish if somebody knows anybody who has all those files that were in the AOL Greyhawk days, let me know. And for all of the 2E folks out there, let me make you jealous just for a second. I do happen to have a Myth and Magic player's guide here, and I got some of the other stuff back there. This was the Kickstarter that blew apart because the guy spent all the money before he could ship the books, and then realized how much it would cost to ship them. But I managed to score one, so that's my brag on 2E. Alrighty, so Jared, the rule set, that rule set is a mishmash of the first 3 editions. Which rule set are you talking about? Are you talking about OSE or something else? Please let me know. Wayne's World, the initiative system was the only part I liked. Yeah, I in Adventures Dark and Deep, I still keep the strength cap for women, just because, you know, in the real world, that's how it works. But you know, it's not exactly the defining element of any game. Nordic Maelstrom, I have an honest question. Why would you get the clones of the older editions to the game instead of just going to the older editions? The book prices are much more reasonable. In terms of basic, I can answer that question, even though I don't play it. Is because when you're looking at the little brown books, if you're they're organized just terribly. I mean, that was the whole point of Menser and Holmes and so forth. And some of the retro clones of basic, you know, use those same rules, but they kind of clean them up a little, and it's the organization and presentation mostly. You know, that I think is the answer to that question, is why you would use a clone, is because it's just laid out better and it's easier to find stuff. Plus, they incorporate you know, little changes here and there and errata and stuff. So I think that's the reason. Michael Stronghold made the spell list for all the specialist classes. Oh yes, yeah. Jared, Nordic Maelstrom. Oh, okay. Yes, thank you, Jared. I really appreciate the boost. Stephen, thank you for coming. Say hi to the family, and hope to see you at another one of these. Nordic. The pristine box sets of Menzo Branzan and Zental Keep. You know, I was really into Forgotten Realms for a long time. The whole gray box era, and all the you know, even before then, when Ed Greenwood was publishing those articles in Dragon, I loved them. I loved that level of detail. I had a big binder with, I photocopied all the articles out of it and I kept them. Those, you know, the amount of history that he had in there was just, it's phenomenal. So I still do have a soft spot in my heart for Forgotten Realms. Even though Greyhawk's my first love, I still consider myself a Realms fan. Even though I don't have any of this stuff anymore, I still keep track of it. Let's see, Earthbound Misfit. I see what you did there. I am a big Pink Floyd fan myself. Customizable clerics and thief skills. Yes, that's a good point. Michael Stronghold, advancing the thief skills. Yep, that's the same thing. The first 3 editions of D&D. The demi-human lifespans. Okay, gotcha. Nordic Maelstrom, BECMI. I don't know. I just, there's something about BECMI that just never grabbed me. I think it's because I went from Holmes Basic straight into AD&D, and you know, at that point, I was playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I didn't want to go back to Basic, so I think that's why it lost me. Yeah, Wayne's World, exactly. The errata had especially if you go through Dragon, those early days of Dragon magazine. Oh my God, it's just wow. Jared, demi-human level limits. I still use demi-human level limits. I think they're perfectly justifiable, and especially in a game like First Edition where the power level is so different than it is today. If you have you know, somewhere around 5th to 8th level is like the sweet spot. And if you're 9th or 12th level, you're a powerful character. So those demi-human level limits don't really impede you, because most normal campaigns never really blew that far past them to begin with. You know, when a 12th level human is like a really powerful guy, you know, an 18th level is just beyond belief. You know, then the demi-human levels don't really, you know, they're not as bad as people say. Let's like the Nordic Maelstrom likes the old school Forgotten Realms. Yeah, like I say, the gray box was really hit it for me. I wish they had kept with the idea that there was that one country that they weren't going to touch at all. It was like adjacent to the Dale Lands. I forget the name of the country. It wasn't Cormier. It was the other one. I wish they had kept that as the DM's playground, but of course they had to fill it in because it's the realms and they fill in everything. Wingsworld I've never met Ed Greenwood. I'm hoping to at some point at some con. He's going to be at GaryCon, and of course this is I won't be at this year's GaryCon, so I'll miss my chance this year again. But so it goes. Although an interesting story. There was back in the early days of Dragon, like in the 30s or 40s in the issues, there was a DM's directory, and they would have their address and phone number, and Ed Greenwood was listed in there. So one day I called, and he had moved out by then, but I talked to his dad. So that was kind of cool. That's my Ed Greenwood story. Let's see here. Earthbound Misfit, yeah, the weapon master. The whole weapon mastery thing was just, yeah. Oh yeah, I used all Terry. Welcome aboard. Thanks for coming. I used all kinds of things from Dragon Magazine back in the day. The other dragons. Remember that article? George Lloyd, I think, was the guy, and he had done like the yellow dragon, the orange dragon. He filled in the colors of the dragon spectrum. I actually worked for him for a few years. He designed a play-by-mail game called Star Master, and back in the 80s when I was in college, he had bought the rights from Schubel and Son back, and they ran a new version. They ran the old version, and he was running a new version, and I helped him run it with another guy. Every evening I'd go out to his house and sit on the computer and type in turns, and it was great. He was a really nice guy, really nice guy. Let's see. It's one of the fighter characters in light leather and brigandine. Yes, yeah. In fact, you'll note I have brigandine in Adventures Dark and Deep, Jared. At Astra, okay. I'm not sure. I'm sure Ad Astra is a con. I'm guessing it's up in Wisconsin or Minnesota or one of those places. Yeah, the shield thing is. That's what I actually used the shield thing the way it was written, where the small shield you can use against one opponent, the medium shield you can use against two, and the large shield you can use against three. So it's not like it gives you a +1 or a +2 or +3, but you can use it against a certain number of people. I want to say that rule was in the oh no, that was in the DM's guide. There was another rule. If you wanted to get the carrying capacities of like a small pouch or a backpack or whatever, that the only place you could find that for the longest time was in the player character record sheet. In the directions of the player character record sheet, they had a little table that showed you a small pouch can hold this and so forth. So they realized they had forgotten it, and then later on, I think they had added it as a new appendix in the DM's guide. Toronto. Okay, good enough. Close enough, anyway. So, oh my goodness. So, do they run Traveler at Nordic? I assume you're asking Wayne. So I'll let you guys have that conversation. We played Traveler a little bit. One of my friends in high school was really into it. I had the books, obviously. I was actually more into the war games for Traveler, Imperium and Miners' War or something like that. There was the Belters' War, because I was still very much into the Hex Encounter war games at that point. So I was, I would get those games and played a little bit of Traveler. I found it a little hard to grasp in terms of the mechanics of like combat and things like that. I loved the fact that you were basically retired. You know, you were adventuring at the end of your career. So you went through the diplomatic service, or you were a scout, or you were in the military or whatever, and you had done that for 20 or 30 years, and now you're an adventurer. I loved that idea. And yes, I actually had a character die in character creation, which was the famous joke that you could do that. It was like a push your luck thing. Is there a Greyhawk product out there that looks into the? Yes, go to Google, find Ivid the Undying. It's actually Jared, not even a copyright violation. Wizards released it as a PDF only thing, and then somebody else went along and did up the maps, and it is great. I use it. I printed it out. That white binder that you see behind me. That's my copy. It is very well done. It's in the same style as I Use the Evil and the Marklands. You know, it's one of those gazetteer type things with a really cool map. But it's definitely worth getting. And it's available for free as a PDF. Somebody did it all duded up with the same border styles and all that good stuff. So it's definitely fine. Rick, yes, Starfleet battles. Jesus. Starfleet, I was really into Starfleet battles when it was the micro game. It came in a little pouch, and then I got the box sets and stuff. When they started turning it into the thing that you had to have in the binder, it really lost me because it was just it drowned under its own weight. But the early versions of that game, it was a sweet little game. And especially the minis, they looked terrific. I as soon as FASA came out with their game, though, I switched immediately. The FASA game was just so much tighter, much easier to play, rules light almost, and the figures were the same scale. So I could have a FASA D10 against a Kzinti ship from Starfleet battles, and it would look great on the table. So I wish I still had all those figures, because I would be playing that right now. I love that game. And then, hey, I still loved Starfleet battles, and I think if correct me if I'm wrong, but Amarillo Design Group is still out there, still publishing for it. In fact, yes, I'm pretty sure they are. So you can still get it. And in fact, if you go to the Complete Strategist, they have a bunch of this stuff, even the old stuff, on the shelves right now. Last time I was there over the summer, they had just like a huge stack of Starfleet battles, from like 20, 30 years ago at the original prices. One of the great things about the Complete Strategist, the best gaming store in New York City or anywhere, is that they don't adjust their prices. It's like it was $4.95 in 1986. It's still $4.95 now. Let's see. Nordic Maelstrom. Actually, Terry, for Ivid the Undying, I believe that was Rob Kuntz did it. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Rob did the Ivid the Undying book. Nordic Maelstrom. What drew you to Greyhawk, and what kept you rolling with it all these years? Well, as I say, I have dallied in other worlds. I was a big Forgotten Realms fan, and I was a big Dark Sun fan for a long time. And but what first drew me to it was the fact that it was the default world in the DM's guide. When you read through the descriptions of the artifacts in the DM's guide, you get a lot of snippets of information. And I do a lot of homebrew campaigns, and like every one of my homebrew campaigns would have a barony of Lum, right? Because the machine of Baron Lum the Mad, so I had to have a barony of Lum, and I would crib a bunch of the different names and stuff and put them in my homebrews. But once they came out with the official Greyhawk, what really drew me to it was two things. First of all, the maps. These maps are not only functional, but they are gorgeous. They're very evocative. And the Darlene maps, to my mind, have not been equaled. In most, I can't think of a RPG map that really rivals those maps in terms of simplicity. You know what's what. And then there's also the books. I mean, the book, the folio. And I'm going back to the original. You had literally 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs on each kingdom. And there was so much room for the DM to play it, to expand it out and fill it in. And that's what I loved about it. It was Hemingway-esque in its brevity. And compared to other settings, like, for example, the big rival at the time was Judges Guild. Judges Guild was very minutely detailed. You know, they had these 5-mile hexes, and they had stuff in every hex, and it was daunting at the time in a way that Greyhawk wasn't. And then when Gygax started to have these articles, you know, this is what's happening in the world of Greyhawk in Common Year 587 and 588, 577 and 578. You know, when you have that breathing life into it month after month in Dragon Magazine, it really gave the impression that this was a living, breathing world. And at the same time, it didn't drown you in a gazillion details. It punctuated a few events that were happening, and it told you, oh yeah, this guy is a general and he's a 9th level fighter, and so forth. But that only served to whet your appetite. You know, it didn't drop a whole you know, big source book the size of a phone book on you. You know, it was just it was a couple of paragraphs or maybe a page about what's going on. And I loved that. I loved the fact that at the one time it could be evocative and informative, and at the other it didn't bury you in detail, and it still left room for the DM. So that is my long-winded answer to your question. The maps and the relative brevity of the setting during the Gygax tenure. Obviously, they filled in a lot more in the 2E era and from you know, and onward, and especially in the Living Greyhawk era. It's just then you start to get just buried under detail. But that's what drew me to it. Alrighty then. Let's see now. Wayne's World. Yeah, I'll bet. I'll bet, because that was just yikes. Nordic Maelstrom. The one problem with the Realms is that it's too detailed in the canon. I mean, just the sheer number of novels that you have in the Forgotten Realms. It's I don't know how anybody other than Ed Greenwood can run it, because I mean, unless you decide ahead of time, okay, I'm just going to take the bits of the Forgotten Realms that I like, and I'm going to ignore the rest. But then it seems to me, why are you bothering to do the realms? Why don't you just make your own homebrew and just take Mythdraenor and put it into your setting, and take Waterdeep and put it into your setting? But it's your setting, and you just have a town that's called Waterdeep. You know, it loses the point of having a setting that is ultra detailed if you're just going to ignore all the details. So you're right. I think that Realms is a victim of its own success in that respect, where there's just so much stuff that the DM should or could be expected to know. And especially if you get a player who's a super fan and they start correcting you, God, that would annoy the hell out of me. Wayne's World, yeah, ADB is publishing. Good. Cutter Jockey, welcome aboard. Thank you for coming. Who is my favorite villain? Well, I have two. Eclavdra is definitely up there, and Obmi. Obmi the Dwarf is probably my favorite. And I like Obmi because we've seen him in a number of different contexts, and he's got a nice backstory that works. You know, first he was in Castle Greyhawk. He was the guy with the reversal machine and the Knoll henchmen, so that you would you would approach him and you would think you were getting close to him, but in reality you were moving backwards and it was an illusion. And then they would try to kill him and he had the boots of speed, so he'd just run away. And I thought that was hilarious when I read that in Dragon. But before that, we also see him in Hall of the Fire Giant King, where he's a slave / advisor to Snurry Ironbelly. And the way he's described is just really cool. He's very devious, and he's going to pretend to be this. It's very, for such a, again, brief description, it's very evocative. And then the way he was presented in the Gord the Rogue novels continues that same continuity. You can tell it's the same guy. It's the same character. He's now just in a different context. Now he's working for Ayuz. And I love that. I think he's, in terms of being able to have one of those recurring villains that's always there to plague the players. I love him for that. And this Iklavdra is in the same in the same class in terms of, she's always got a clone waiting. She's a bit more of an obvious one. So that's why she's my number 2 favorite, so behind Obmi. But she's also one of those that you see keeps reinventing herself as she is reinvented throughout the history of the game and the setting. She starts out obviously in G3, Hall of Giant King. She's in charge. She's leading the rebel Drow. And you have to figure that out. And then she's obviously in Vault of the Drow. And then she's in the books, she's serving Grast instead of the Elder Elemental God, which makes sense. And then later on in, I believe it was Ayuz the Evil, the booklet, she is once again serving Lolth, and she's an ambassador to Ayuz. So I love the fact that she's got that continuity that still works from product to product. But in terms of a well done character as a foil for the players, I think Obmi edges her out. Marquesa, yes. Michael, have you? I hope you've seen the Castle Entertainment modules. Marquesa keeps coming back over and over in those modules. I highly recommend them. Let's see now. Jared taking Greyhawk and ignoring all the details. Yeah, exactly. Which is why I've kind of softened on Sargent over the years. Especially when you read the Gary Gygax and Rob Kuntz articles about this battle's happening and this country's going here. They fit in really well with the Greyhawk Wars and From the Ashes stuff. Once I realized that, it made me realize that Sargent really did have an appreciation for the setting, and he really was working with the material that had come before him, and that really raised his stuff up in my eyes. Nordic Maelstrom, thanks for coming. It was wonderful seeing you. I really appreciate it. Let's see. Yeah, well, Forgotten Realms 3D source book might say that, but yeah, I'm not buying it. So, well, we've got about 15 more minutes. If anybody has any more questions, I'm going to take a. An alternate history where Gary bought out the Blooms. You know how you have those fantasies about, if I went back in time to visit my younger self, if I could go back to myself in freshman year of college, I would tell myself to do X, Y, and Z. That's part of one of those fantasies. Our alternate dungeon placements. Well, we can absolutely, but I don't want to do it short shrift. We only have about 15 minutes, but I'd be happy to. Let's pivot to that. Take, for example, Tomb of Horrors. And I don't know if anybody else has read the novel for Tomb of Horrors, but it's actually one of the better Greyhawk novels that's out there. And the beautiful part is they actually have a completely different plot for getting you to um, the into the tomb and what you're supposed to do there. There's like a MacGuffin now hidden inside that's inside the tomb that is related to Tharizdun. And there's like good people and Tharizdun cultists both going into the temple, to see who can get there first. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about when I say alternate dungeon placements, dungeon scenarios. Is that you're still going into the same Tomb of Horrors, but you're not just going in there to loot the place. You're going in there to find a specific thing because there's a rival group going in there after it. You could do the same thing, let's say, with, I don't know, Descent into the Depths of the Earth. And again, there's one of the novels does this brilliantly, is that it's the same Descent into the Depths of the Earth that, the modules describe. But in this case, it has no connection whatsoever to the fire giants. It's just it's a way to get from the mortal realm, and I think it's in Kaoland, into the realm of fairy. You have to go down into the underworld, and then it's a way to get there. And I thought that was a great idea. It's a way of completely recontextualizing the module, but you still get to use all the cool stuff like the Troglodyte Cavern and the Shrine of the Quotoa and all those stuff. But this time you're not going in after, you're not chasing Eclavdra and the Drow. You're going in because this is the route to something else that you need to get to. And I love that idea. You could do much the same thing with, say, Hidden Shrine of Tamoakan, which is a wonderful module. I love the module. But rather than you're, shipwrecked and you're fleeing and then the earthquake comes and you're in this thing, I could see it as, I could see somebody actually like building out the whole city, like a whole ruined city, and having the Shrine of Tamoakan in the middle so that you recontextualize it. It's not, you're just trying to get out and without the poison gas and stuff, but it's part of a general exploration of this whole big area. It's one of the things I've wanted to do for a long time. I just haven't had the time to do it. Take another one. Let's see. In fact, they kind of did that with their take on Greyhawk Ruins. The non-joke one, not Castle Greyhawk, but Greyhawk Ruins, because they added a plot to it. Eventually you don't have to go in there for the plot, but once you're in there, you realize that there's a plot. You could actually go in there saying, okay, we need to find out what's going on with this underworld, with the Underdark connection to the castle. So you're going in there for an actual quest rather than just randomly exploring, which is how it was originally done under Gygax and Kunst. They did kind of an alternate take on it, and you could lean into that, and you could actually have your players going in there for that reason rather than just stumbling on it. That's the kind of thing I would love to see. Earthbound Misfit. Yes, I don't know. I like Gygax's prose. I know a lot of people give him posthumous grief about it, but I honestly like the way he writes, and it kind of colors my own prose. So then again, I've always liked H.P. Lovecraft even since high school. So maybe I'm not the best arbiter of what is good or bad prose. Wayne's World, G1 is the greatest novel module. I think G1 is probably one of the most underappreciated modules, in the sense that there is a lot in there beyond just you're there to kill a bunch of giants. When you really start to pick apart the whole idea of, there is a shrine of the elder elemental god underneath the steading. They don't call it that, but that's what it is. And then you have the rebel orcs that are in there, and you realize that the Drow have told them to build their steading here because they've given them the plan. And on top of the Drow told them build it here, and you have this layer of plot that is only implied and you have to really read carefully into it, and then you have to apply it to the other parts of the module series to realize that the Drow are manipulating the Hill Giants into reopening this shrine because they're the ones who are they want to restore the worship of the Elder Elemental God. I think that is a really underutilized aspect of that module, and for that reason I would say it's one of the best, because there's potential there that most DMs probably don't realize. I know I didn't realize it for the longest time. So let's see. Put the shrine in the Forbidden City. Yeah, I could see that Cutter Jockey putting the shrine of Tamalkan in the Forbidden City. I think they do have some ziggurats or stuff in there. I could actually see that working. Wayne's World wanted to run an AD&D campaign based on Carl Edward Wagner's Kane series. I am not familiar with that, I'm afraid. I apologize. It does happen every once in a while. Jared, I was the guy who first pointed out to Joe that Eclavdra is deliberately tricking the players into thinking that Lolth is... Well, it was in the module. But yeah, and in fact, they changed that aspect when they put it into Queen of Spiders. They kind of rewrote it and they did. I don't remember the specifics, but I remember seeing it. It was in D3, and then it was changed in Queen of Spiders. But yeah, you definitely pointed it out to me that it's there. It's one of those things that's kind of, it's almost an oversight. It's almost an afterthought in D3. But it really it does make having Lolth the center point make a little more sense. But even then, I still love Gygax's original idea that the players are ultimately going to try to stop them both. That's the key. Is that, and that's what I do in my Q2 module. Very Gothic world, okay. Well, exactly, Jared. That is exactly why I wrote my Q2 the way I did, and why Gygax had originally intended it to be that the players, the way he put it, through astute play, will stop both the Elder Elemental God and Lolth from their plans. And the way I did it was I made it patently obvious to the players that Lolth is about to invade the Flanaess. So they have to stop that, and at the same time, they have the opportunity to stop the Elder Elemental God, who is behind Eclavdra and the Isle Serfs. So, Regina, welcome. Yeah, you came in near the end, but welcome. I'm glad you were able to make it for a little bit. We're winding down, but you're welcome to stay for what we got left. Thank you very much, Jared. I really appreciate it. The G series. There's a G4 out there with Stone Giants, as I recall, and I think the same guy did a G5 or something like that. I might even want to do. There was an old Judges Guild module, Beneath the Storm Giants Castle. And I want. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I wonder how it would be possible to include that in a if you wanted to beef up the Giants series. Absolutely, Regina. Better late than never. And I hope I'm pronouncing Regina better, not Regina. I know that's the English pronunciation. I get enough grief with my pronunciation of Drow, let alone people's names. Okay. Very cool, Wayne's World. Thank the combination of magic and technology. That's actually a really cool idea, Jared. Having Lolth seize control. That might actually even feed in, because remember I said earlier about Lolth bringing Eclavdra back into her service. It's actually canonized in I Use the Evil. That might actually explain it. That Lolth decided to use Eclavdra's idea and actually use her, bring her back, give her control of the vault. Although it would take some explanation for why Lolth was willing to do that after the fact rather than before. Maybe she would make Eclavdra like head of the make her the high priestess of Lolth rather than queen of the vault like she wanted. It might be some compromise, but it's an idea worth exploring, I think. Excellent. Yeah, Snurry is an interesting one because you get the idea that he's behind bringing in all of the other giants. But we also see, isn't there like an ogre magi embassy in the Hill Giants? So he's not the only one who's actively bringing people in. And I want to say there's something in the Frost Giants too. There's like they're also hosting somebody else. It's weird. You don't really get a strong sense of personality when it comes to Snurry. It's weird. He's just kind of there, and which is weird because he's obviously the center point of not only the module but the plot. He's Eclavdra's foil on the surface world. So I kind of wish he had been a little better explored in terms of his personality. We know that Nostra is in the Hill Giants is described as dumb and brutish because Gary Gygax was being Gary Gygax, but and we do know that Snurry's chief advisor is Omni, but he's also a slave, which is interesting. But yeah, I never got the idea that he was like this charismatic leader type, but he's definitely one of the point men for Eclavdra's recruiting of the other giants. So it's a weird dynamic that it's probably worth pointing out. So anyway, we have hit the 8 o'clock hour, and that means I do need to go make some dinner. But thank you all so very much for coming. I love these discussions. I would also encourage everybody to either become a member of the YouTube channel, or you can join on Patreon. We also do a monthly Zoom call now, which is just a one-on-one, just chatting away. So you'll have access to that. Other than that, I really appreciate you all coming. These are a lot of fun. Just have a wonderful night. Hope everybody had a good New Year's and a good Christmas and everything. And hey, thanks again. I love you guys for coming. I really appreciate the support. And we'll see what happens with this OGL thing. Hopefully all will work out peachy keen. So, alrighty. Have a wonderful night, and I will talk to you all later.